The mysterious circumstances of the untimely demise of Stanley Meyer still intrigue many researchers and enthusiasts alike. He was a genius inventor of that so-called water-powered vehicle, which had all that was necessary to turn the transportation world around. That was not to be, and Meyer died under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind him a legacy of controversy. Since his demise, several theories have been thrown over what his invention really was and how he met his untimely demise. One way or another, it would seem that Meyer's work raised immense interest in possible alternative energy sources. At the right time, Meyer's invention may have been way too soon. Undeniably, however, it pushed the envelope in what was known or imagined. As we go deeper into the mystery of Meyer's life and demise, we are at an interchange of science, innovation, and mystery. A question lingers in the air. What is actually hidden behind the scenes in this enigmatic story? Only further investigation will reveal the facts about Stanley Meyer and his water-powered car. Who was Stanley Meyer? Over several years, numerous groundbreaking technologies were suppressed by authorities. Their creators were compelled to operate in secrecy. Ultimately, these innovations failed to reach their full potential due to vested interests. The primary reason for this limitation was that these developments threatened the dominance of powerful corporations and influential industries. Many malicious entities continuously try to suppress new ideas that could help society just to keep their hold on the reins of power and money. The abandoned ideas were of all types, including those related to energy, transport, medicine, and communication. One of these repressed ideas was that of Stanley Meyer. Stan was a man who counteracted the traditional approach to energy generation. His invention was dangerous for the ruling powers. Born on August 24, 1940, Stanley was an imaginative inventor and entrepreneur. He had devoted his life to using water as a renewable energy source. Meyer was a twin. His brother Stephen had been his partner in almost all his personal and business enterprises. The brothers often would work together on one exciting new project or another. Stan's water-run car application was no exception.
Coming of reality, a local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
We aren't firing it up. Let's just hook up the distributor and turn the engine over so I can see how it works since it has the same sized pulleys. This is just a test to see if all fuel injectors work, and they do. I am manually operating the mechanism. See how it works, please. And you can see it here. This piece has an injector that... Now, I will turn it the way a normal vehicle would operate. Stan Meyer had an intimidating physics. He was about 6'3" in height. He had a thundering voice. His charisma must have been very high. Still, more importantly, he could speak comfortably with any person in town. Stanley grew up on the east side of Columbus, Ohio. His family later moved to Grandview Heights. It was here that his curious mind was evident at an early age. Stan eventually held 200,000 patents in his name. His inventions spanned from automotive to aerospace. His work with the Gemini space program was typical of his genius. He was very innovative with cardiac monitoring equipment, oceanography, and confirming financial systems. He then became employed with a highly reputed research and development agency based in Ohio, the Battelle Foundation. Stan's work for the Battelle Foundation probably influenced Stan in scientific and technological endeavors. There is an interesting story about Meyer's quirky nature. Once, the police in Grove City contacted him over a suspicious package at his laboratory at home. The Columbus Bomb Squad was called, and the box opened to reveal the scientific machinery that Meyer had ordered. At this point, it was seen how unusual Meyer was to be. No one went on record describing Stan as weird, but I think we can get this by his line of work, certainly. Friends would quote in the interviews with Meyer when Stan would say, "Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition." That is surely faith and quirkiness. Things started to take an interesting turn in the life of Stanley Meyer when he showed up unexpectedly at Hughes's house in the late 1970s. Curiously, he came saying, "The Lord sent me." Julia Hughes, then a young girl, still remembers the encounter. It was Meyer's inventive spirit and conviction that attracted her family to him, thus engaging them in a long-term partnership. Not all of Stan's futuristic projects came out successful, but Charles Hughes was still his staunch supporter. Hughes was fascinated by Meyer's persistence and resourcefulness. What was the catalyst that brought on the idea that changed his life forever? Stan's life-changing concept. The 1973 oil embargo, marked by economic sanctions and resurging petroleum costs, encouraged Stanley to search for new fuel options. Preoccupied with using water as a perpetual source of energy, he devoted extensive time and energy to devising various methods. After months of trial and error, Stanley boasted that he had created a device that could run solely on water. Such a concept may seem like the stuff of fantasy, but history has repeatedly demonstrated that visionaries often push boundaries in ways both innovative and unprecedented. A long-held dream was taking shape at the top of our broadcast at 6 p.m. A local inventor had discovered a method to utilize water as an automotive fuel. This breakthrough was sure to please motorists and intrigue military officials. As Ralph Robinson said, the Pentagon was really excited about this one. Water, already considered the most valuable commodity, could now become even more valuable thanks to Stan Meyer's invention. What he had invented was what he called a water-powered fuel cell to replace the conventional gas tank. This incredible device separates hydrogen and oxygen, which are combusted in an internal combustion engine to produce water vapor. Stanley demonstrated his water-powered dune buggy on a local Ohio television station. He claimed the vehicle could make the trip from Los Angeles to New York on just 22 gallons of water.
That if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
If we drove this dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would use approximately 22 gallons of water. The Pentagon sent a lieutenant colonel last week to review Meyer's invention. There is even speculation that it may be used in the Star Wars defense program and to power military tanks. Meyer's is now perfecting a water-powered fuel cell for cars. It will sell for about $1,500. He says it never needs maintenance and will never have to be replaced. It will be at least 2 years before it goes into mass production. The day that it enters wide usage will certainly be an unwelcome development for the oil industry. The water fuel cell. Stanley Meyer's invention, the water fuel cell, was compact and used electrical energy to split water into two essential components, hydrogen and oxygen. With Meyer's water fuel cell, the term combusting water takes on a whole new meaning. The genius of this device lay in its claim to need little energy input. This quality turned it into a highly effective and sustainable process for producing fuel. The water fuel cell was the heart of Meyer's H2O vehicle. This was a modified dune buggy that reportedly ran only on water as its source of fuel. How cool! In 1995, Meyer introduced this car to the world. A car that could travel long distances on just a gallon of water.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow.
Meyer claimed he traveled more than 100 miles on 1 gallon of tap water. However, Stanley Meyer dared to dream of alternative energy sources. Little did he realize he was treading on the toes of those large traditional oil companies. You can bet they weren't pleased about it. How then did this magic device work? The water fuel cell ostensibly decomposed water into hydrogen and oxygen, which was then burned to produce power. Reconstructing the water molecules in the process, Meyer's device required less energy to perform electrolysis than conventional science suggested it should. Meyer used the term fuel cell differently from most people. Usually, fuel cells produce electricity from a chemical reaction instead. Their fuel cell consumes electricity to decompose water into hydrogen and oxygen. The implications of Meyer's invention were profound. If it worked as advertised, it would be in direct violation of the first and second laws of thermodynamics. It would run in direct conflict with the laws because it would be working as a perpetual motion machine. This raised some eyebrows among the scientific community. A few even labeled the claims as pseudoscience. Despite the controversy, Meyer's invention garnered substantial interest and amazement. Meyer's water fuel cell was demonstrated to a panel of esteemed experts. Over there were some very unique design features that had to be developed in order to develop the water fuel cell as a retrofit energy system for conventional vehicles. We had to go ahead and develop a laser, what we call a laser distributor, as you can see right here, which is placed between the conventional rotor cap and the rotor assembly. And mainly what this does is set up the electronic signals that go back and trigger the computer system in order to allow the car to run successfully on hydrogen. This panel included Professor Michael Lyon, Admiral Sir Anthony Griffin, and Dr. Keith Hindley. Stanley presented a series of impressive trials. He demonstrated how the cell produced a surprisingly large amount of hydrogen and oxygen gas, despite using only milliamps of electricity and pure water. Unlike traditional electrolysis, this was a groundbreaking achievement. Meyer's cell remained remarkably cool, even after hours of continuous operation. They remained in their original state. This contrasted sharply with conventional methods. The witnesses were thoroughly impressed by the cell's exceptional efficiency and control. and he noticed that it did appear to run in spite of conventional scientific explanation. Meyer's ingenious invention utilized an unusual combination of high-voltage pulses and resonance to decompose water into its component parts, a process previously thought impossible. The cell's electrodes, made of stainless steel, were precisely spaced to optimize gas production, showcasing Meyer's meticulous attention to detail. The demonstration showed the cell did some quite remarkable things. It produced a high volume of gas, yes, enough to support a flame of sufficient temperature and intensity to melt steel. Witnesses left convinced that Meyer had discovered a new way to split water, and that his invention could start a new era in the production of energy. Some of Meyer's claims were very well supported, as his granted US patents had been the most rigorously tested and scrutinized by experts over the past 3 years. What an incredible amount of innovation and precision there was in Meyer's work. Amazingly enough, his cell could make a quantity of gas that could melt steel. And with his parents having been thoroughly tested, and verified by experts, it was clear that his claims were backed by solid science. He was truly onto something revolutionary. It's a shame his work wasn't more widely recognized and built upon. His invention had the potential to provide a clean, efficient, and sustainable source of energy, a breakthrough that could change the world. Why doesn't everyone know about this revolutionary technology? Why aren't we using it to power our cars and decrease our dependence on fossil fuels? That is the suppression of innovative technologies and how corporate interests shape our energy landscape. With groundbreaking claims like these, admiration isn't the only reaction. They also spark intense skepticism. Was Meyer's invention a revolution, or just too good to be true? Let's explore the controversy. Skepticism and media coverage. In any case, as attention to Meyer's invention grew, it polarized an immense skepticism and controversy. The controversy in discussing his claims resembled believers' clash against skeptics in anticipation of the opponent conceding.
Ability to extract the chemical potential energy directly from water.
Many experts refused Meyer's claims, pointing out huge thermodynamic obstacles to achieving that grade of energy efficiency he promised. The absence of technical details and peer-reviewed publications only whetted the appetite of the critics. The scientific community still showed little belief in Stanley Meyer's claims. It seemed that his technology was not popular among the academic circles. Apparently, many experts were still not convinced by his statements and considered his methods impossible. Apparently, Meyer's claim of resonating water molecules at low frequencies was not supported scientifically. One might say that newer designs were in place to function on non-gasoline bases. There was much controversy over his technology, as it seemed to defy the basic laws of thermodynamics. Also, Meyer's electrolysis cell was no more efficient than any other conventional model, which means his claims regarding high efficiency were more or less exaggerated. It was clear by this time that his technology was not living up to his words, and experts were not impressed. Although some people were still convinced that Meyer's invention was real, the majority of the scientific community rejected Meyer's claims. Philip Ball wrote an article in Nature that Meyer's announcements were pseudo-scientific. Ball explained that water cannot be split with less energy than it is released by recombination.
I've been designed very recently to operate off of non-leaded gasoline.
The article labeled Meyer's claims another water-as-fuel urban legend. Philip Ball left Meyer's water fuel dreams high and dry. On the bright side, Meyer's idea didn't sink without a struggle, but unfortunately it didn't quite float either. Not for long, at least until 1996, when Meyer faced allegations of fraud from 2 investors who bought rights to dealerships, promising them the opportunity to invest in water fuel cell technology business ventures. Irrelevant whether the water source to be used is rainwater, well water, city water, or ocean water, Michael Lofton was expected to examine Meyer's car for the case in the process. Meyer called in and provided what Professor Lofton considered the weakest excuse possible on that exam date. After Meyer had been found guilty of gross and egregious fraud, the test was not allowed to proceed. The court ordered him to refund $25,000 to the 2 investors. The suspicion of Meyer's invention was further heightened by the absence of scientific evidence to support his claims. No investigations of Meyer's inventions have been published in the scientific literature or undergone peer review processes. Despite the controversy, Meyer's invention continued to be of interest and debate. Some believe his technology could have changed our concept of energy production. Others call it a sophisticated hoax. Perhaps Meyer was just an enthusiastic entrepreneur who disclosed his vision too soon. Maybe he had a vision for a solution to global energy problems and couldn't wait for the slow pace of scientific validation. After all, history is full of innovators who were initially ridiculed. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to justify his claims or prove his skeptics wrong. A sad ending to a story that was potentially one groundbreaking chapter in the history of energy. Stanley Meyer's demise. Stanley Meyer's life took a dramatic and unexpected turn 2 years after he had been accused of running a huge fraud in the year 1996. On March 20th, 1998, tragedy struck when he suddenly died while dining in a restaurant. According to his brother Stephen, Meyer was dining with 2 investors from Belgium when, somewhat out of the blue, he clutched his throat in panic and exclaimed, "They've poisoned me!" Mystery and uncertainty cloud the circumstances surrounding Stanley Meyer's untimely demise. The unexpected and sudden emergence of quite a number of alarming symptoms, coupled with the startling claim that it was because he had allegedly been poisoned, in a scenario intertwined with the very interesting angle of Belgian investors, brings more layers into an already mysterious and puzzling enigma attached to the case.
With water fuel cell was in the fact that once they understood.
Making this particularly intriguing is how Meyer lived a life drenched in controversy, tacking into this complex web that even leaves more and more question marks in everyone's head. His rather haunting final words, "They've poisoned me," are disturbing and give reason to wonder, what truly did transpire in the last throes on Earth? Considering this was a sensational charge that had been afloat, the exhaustive inquiry into the facts and circumstances surrounding Meyer's sudden demise found nothing whatsoever to support this poisoning theory. A coroner's report examined the case of Meyer subsequently and concluded briefly and succinctly, Meyer had been afflicted with a cerebral aneurysm, a grave medical condition he had been contending with as a result of his long-standing hypertension. This was further conclusively substantiated through comprehensive toxicology tests that showed clearly no trace of poison in Meyer's system at the time of death. Sudden and totally unexpected, Meyer's demise sent shockwaves of grief and utter disbelief into the community of those who knew him well or had simply become great fans of the prolific body of work he'd built over the years. Among those hit the hardest was his brother, Stephen. He was also quite traumatized by the incident, and still remembered how surreal and unsettling it had been when the Belgian investors were informed of Meyer's demise. While an official judgment has been made regarding the circumstances of his death, there has been much speculation by many individuals regarding the many factors and events that surrounded Meyer's last hours on this earth. However, at this moment in history, there is no hard or verifiable evidence to substantiate any claims that may indicate foul play or poisoning as the cause of his death. The life and death of Stanley Meyer have kept many out of curiosity, and the controversies he caused continue to capture the imagination of a wide range of researchers and enthusiasts alike. Controversy aside, his work has doubtless left an enormous, indelible mark within the scientific community that could not be ignored. Pausing to reflect upon the life and times of this reclusive figure serves poignantly to remind one of that very intriguing, complex interplay.
We literally have the ability now of engineering, systems engineering it to mass production very, very quickly.
Existing between science and controversies often arising, with tragedy not infrequently occurring in many pioneering efforts across diverse research fields. In the final analysis, while the circumstances of the last hours of Stanley Meyer may be forever clouded and never fully known or understood, it is worth pointing out that his legacy has been one that continues to spark both admiration and skepticism in many people. The instance is a strong and sensitive reminder of the big challenges that most innovators are bound to face as they seek to advance knowledge and understanding of humankind in general. Stanley Meyer's death wasn't just the end of a life, it was the beginning of a mystery. Was his passing a tragic accident, or something far more sinister? Let's unravel the conspiracy theories that continue to fuel intrigue decades later. The conspiracy theories. The enigmatic demise of Stanley Meyer still raises people's curiosity. The untimely death of this genius inventor generated numerous conspiracy theories. According to some speculations, Meyer was eliminated by operatives connected with the petroleum industry because his groundbreaking technology.
So we can move this technology bilateral in every aspect of the economy and do it very, very quickly.
Was on the verge of entering the commercial sphere. On the other hand, many have questioned the effectiveness of his invention, yet several others are convinced that his device was working and that he was murdered to keep the oil giant's interests intact. Meyer's brother Stefan reported that, in his final moments, the inventor was involved in a violent reaction upon consuming cranberry juice at a local eatery. Stefan said Meyer grabbed his neck and vomited copiously, uttering, "They poisoned me." Official investigations concluded before he died that Meyer died from a cerebral aneurysm, but many doubt the official verdict and say that Meyer was murdered. The Meyer invention attracted much interest in a number of quarters, including the government and mysterious foreign agencies seeking to obtain the invention. He refused to sell or license his technology, despite many lucrative offers.
Technology solved for design engineering, retrofitting to existing energy-consuming devices was.
He reportedly received many proposals, some offering millions of dollars for his creation, but the nature and sources of such proposals remained shrouded in mystery. Some think Meyer's inventions had enormous value and were in high demand because of their potential uses. Others thought that these actions were actually threats to terrorize or shut Meyer up. Indeed, there are reports that Meyer's house was frequented by mysterious characters, including guys in turbans and high-ranking military personnel. It is also alleged that the men in turbans offered Meyer a staggering $250 million to stop his work, but it was never clear if this was a serious offer or a ploy to threaten him, or indeed whether it ever happened at all. Rumor had it that the army types were interested in Meyer's technology for military applications, though this was never confirmed. They say that Meyer hid away his various creations, which included a radically new type of dune buggy, in secret locations for years on end. One longtime friend supposedly didn't dare show his Meyer buggy for a long period of time. People would constantly bug me for details about Meyer's invention, he thought, but wasn't about to say. Some actually believed that his invention worked, while others were highly skeptical due to the very inefficient process of electrolysis. However, Meyer's death really raised a number of suspicions, considering how much of a threat his invention was to the oil industry's dominance. The death of Meyer is a loud statement of the power and hidden agendas, many times coming hand in glove with scientific innovation and technological advancement. Investigating Stanley Meyer's demise. It is, however, a challenge to pursue comprehensive information about toxins that induce only cerebral aneurysms in a complex structure surrounding the brain, composed of a network of blood vessels. This complexity arises because of the multifaceted nature of the condition and the many variables that contribute to its development. These give a lot of reason for skepticism, not to say doubt, of Meyer's assertions of intentional poisoning, since his mental state was certainly compromised at the time of his aneurysm. Speculations surrounding the military or space exploration-based governmental units about using this technology, however it sees fit, are still rampant. The date Meyer died remains in dispute, with some sources citing March 27th, while the Eureka Police Department's file gives it as March 20th. Stanley Meyer, Meyer's brother, clearly remembers the night it happened. Meyer suddenly felt sick, Stanley relates, remembering his last words.
He had a heart attack, and as he was dying, he was saying, "They killed me. They killed me."
To date, Stanley has declined to comment on the findings of the coroner, let alone Meyer's cause of death, so far, leading some to wonder if fear has silenced him. The extensive inquiry into Meyer's death finally determined that Meyer died due to a cerebral aneurysm, but rampant conspiracy theories still persist over his death under questionable circumstances. Reactions of the two Belgian investors who were with Meyer in his last moments, the apparent lack of emotional response by the two to the news of Meyer's death, have also engendered suspicion regarding their role. The identities of these Belgians have been confirmed through personal interviews with Meyer's immediate family members. Further complicating the matter, the mysterious details surrounding Meyer's death have left people wondering and debating constantly at the hands of those individuals who look for answers to explain this terrible incident. Stanley Meyer's story mirrors the plot of The Water Engine, a tale of innovation silenced by powerful interests. Could life have imitated art? Let's explore the striking parallels. The Water Engine. The unfolding story of Stanley Meyer is chillingly parallel to a play called The Water Engine by playwright David Mamet. A playwright chronicles the struggles of an imaginative inventor who devises a motor that runs on water, resisted by powerful forces out to maintain a status quo. Both stories tell the tale of a creative genius who devises something so radical that powerful vested interests want him silenced. This fact makes the outcome of Meyer's saga somewhat uncanny. In the play, the protagonist invents a water-powered engine, Further developments of the technology involved what we would call the laser accelerator controller. Although Meyer claimed to have invented a water-powered car, in both accounts, the inventor faced fierce resistance from powerful forces who sought to repress the new idea. In The Water Engine, the protagonist confronts ruthless industrial magnates who want to cling to their control of the energy sector. Others claim, in fact, that Meyer's invention was authentic and that he was murdered to prevent his technology from interfering with the petroleum industry. Such a comparison would indicate that Meyer's story may not be mere conspiracy theories, but rather a real-life example of how far those in power will go to maintain their control of the energy market. As the protagonist in The Water Engine is silenced by the industrial barons, Meyer's existence is cut tragically short under mysterious circumstances. The parallel between the two stories sets deep questions about the nature of power and greed in thwarting progress. If Meyer's invention actually existed, was he killed by the oil industry? Was he the victim of an immense conspiracy to preserve the status quo? A workable Meyer water-powered car would have seriously jeopardized petroleum interests. The end results, assuming diminished fuel sales, were said to be lost market shares for corporate interests, rendered obsolescent infrastructures, contested energy hegemony, and reshaped global geopolitics. The petroleum industry, long the paramount player in the energy marketplace, might view such a technology as a threat to profits, influence, and power. This would prompt them to take drastic measures to suppress it, which forms the core of the conspiracy theory surrounding Meyer's existence and demise. Yet, critics say that Meyer's claims ran counter to basic laws of physics and that his invention could not have worked. They say hydrogen is a highly explosive gas, and storing it is a major problem. Regardless of the mystery of Meyer's death and the skepticism surrounding his invention, his legacy lives on. Some companies today are selling kits that add chemical energy from water to gasoline fuel, which they say will improve fuel economy. The debate about Meyer's invention and death is endless, and the man is considered to be an innovator whose ideas were silenced by powerful parties, while others consider him a fraud who made wrong claims. Stanley Meyer's death is one of the more complex and intriguing conspiracies. It was officially explained as a result of a cerebral aneurysm, but some facts point to very suspicious circumstances of his death. The fact that his last words were reportedly, "They poisoned me," goes to show that he really did feel he was murdered. The fact that no poison was found within the toxicology report itself already disputes whether he was poisoned or not. Justice Mist's statement that being poisoned was such an obvious lie and wasn't true. I think a cerebral aneurysm is a very convenient way for somebody to die, and if they were indeed poisoned, that could possibly result in that type of condition. I know several doctors and have discussed it with them, and they have said the same thing. Anyway, it is said here that allegedly, over lunch with NATO officials at a Cracker Barrel diner, the group made an opening statement, which does not explain the situation, as it could be that a sophisticated poison was used that did not appear in the tests given. Meyer's invention, if it were proven to work, would have had a profound effect on the environment, as well as the petroleum industry. It is possible that he was seen as a threat by someone or some organization and thus needed to be silenced. That he received threats and attempts at bribery may indicate there is more to this story than initially meets the eye. This story is a good example of how innovation, power, and secrecy are intertwined in the field of energy production and consumption. Thank you for watching, and make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel.